Welcome to video 6 of day 5 of my trip around the English Channel, doing research for my PhD, researching the maritime knowledge behind the Norman invasion of England in 1066. Today we sailed from Fécamp up to Saint-Valery-sur-Somme. It's Saint-Valery-sur-Somme that the early sources are agreed the Normans finally left to make the crossing to England. We left Fécamp at 5:30 in the morning so that we could get all the way up there, because Saint-Valery is a very difficult harbour to get into with a boat of draft, which is 1.9 metres, so it's very deep, far deeper than the 11th century ships would have been. The reconstructions of the ships that were found in Roskilde Fjord by the Viking Ship Museum vary between, for the seagoing vessels, about half a metre in draft to about 1.2 metres for the deepest seagoing trader. So our 1.9 metres is quite considerably deeper in the water than these 11th century ships would have been, but these modern considerations mean that we have to make sure that we access the entrance to Saint-Valery and the passage down to that marina in daylight. The Shell Channel Pilot and the Almanac, which are two of the really detailed guidance books on how to navigate these various ports around the English Channel, they say that you need to allow up to 2 hours to navigate the Baie de Somme to get into Saint-Valery, and it's a very winding channel that changes, so it's going to be quite complicated. So we're going to make sure we leave nice and early to make sure we can do all that safely and in the daylight. But it did mean that we left Fécamp in the dark as we arrived, but this time the conditions were very nice. So we got a nice view of the harbour that we came into in the dark in the storm, where we could only really see the lights right until we were right up there. So it was nice to look back on Fécamp from the sea and see it clearly. Carrying on from Fécamp, there were the high chalk cliffs continued for about 10 hours, so there wasn't a great deal of variety in the seascape. The visibility was poor to moderate, I think, and we could see some of the smaller havens, but really on that stretch the main havens are Saint-Valery-en-Caux, and then Dieppe is by far the most significant, followed by Le Tréport. The town of Le Tréport marked the end of Normandy in the 11th century, before going on to the county of Ponthieu, and the cliffs stop just after Le Tréport. So from that point the topography flattens out, sort of ramps down into the Somme estuary, which is very flat, and you can see that approach here. Because the Somme estuary is so complicated to access and navigate down to Saint-Valery-sur-Somme, we spent about 40 minutes, maybe slightly less, outside the entrance, just double and triple checking all of the different passages, because the different books gave different instructions. So how to count the buoys going in was different, and the routes were different. So we wanted to make sure we were absolutely clear on what we were doing, because if we ran aground there, it would be quite difficult to get unstuck, and it is very shallow, as you will see shortly. So to navigate a channel, you need to have the red markers to your left, your port side, and the green markers to the right, the starboard side. And generally you stick to the middle of the channel if you're in shallow water, because that's probably where the deepest water is. So we have 4 people on board, and each person had a very specific role. So John was helm, he was driving, Ben was reading the depths, Ed was looking through the binoculars for the next set of markers, and I was on navigation with all of the different instructions in the different books, and you can see how we got on. Yep. So at the start of that clip, you may have heard Ben reading out the depths, which were all below a metre. There were a couple of times when the readings were 0, and we were actually not sure how much depth there was below us, because this is a chartered yacht, and we're not sure what the tolerance below the keel was, so that wasn't ideal. When you're in such shallow water, you really, really need to know that. It could have been 10 centimetres, it could have been half a metre, and we had no idea. So, yeah, it was very interesting, and took a long time. And we saw some seals who came up to have a look and see what we were doing, which was really nice. But we were very, very glad to get into Saint-Valery. So it looks like there's a lot of water about in this picture, and there is. The Baie de Somme is very large, but that water is very, very shallow. And there are 2 channels, and we needed the right-hand one that led to Saint-Valery, and you can see on Google Maps actually the clearest view of this channel. So as we approached Saint-Valery, we still had to stay very alert and pay attention, because as you can see here, the starboard channel marker, the green right-hand side channel marker, is not actually in the water. So we stayed to port, but you don't really know exactly where you sort of stand in this estuary with how much water you've got beneath you. And we were very glad to finally get in. And Saint-Valery is a beautiful town, so I look forward to telling you about that in the next video when I get a chance to make it. I'm just going to leave you with a couple of images looking back out towards the Somme estuary, and also towards the River Somme, so that you can bear that in mind in the next video when I show you the area at low tide.